from last meeting that they want to touch base on? Anything? Janine, do you have anything you'd like to follow up this week? All right, let's go ahead and move on to our second item, utility billing ordinance changes update. I'm going to pass that to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So Council, Director Johnson will update you this evening about our conversion from fully paper to paperless billing, and also share some other updates with you. I reiterate from the start, as Jill and her team approach, that we are not moving completely to paperless billing. I know that's been a concern for some of your constituents, and Jill will describe what we do hope to accomplish to try to reduce some cost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Thank you for having us this evening. We're going to do two parts to our presentation this evening. This is Ann Porter. She is our accounts receivable supervisor. And she's going to go through the effects that the changes to the ordinance had on our collections. They've been pretty amazing. So I'm going to turn this over to her for a few minutes, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So some of the tools that we've utilized since the initiation of it in September of 24, collecting deposits on accounts, delinquent calls before shutoffs, and meter services achieving 100% shutoffs, and controlling zero read accounts. So to start with deposits collected, as of today, we hold about 433 deposits on our accounts. These deposits are collected. Any new customer will have to pay a deposit or have a letter of credit. If they can get a letter of credit from a previous company, we don't charge them to the deposit. If water is shut off for non-payment and the account does not have a deposit, they are charged the $200 deposit and the past due to get their water reinstated. These deposits are on their account for 12 months. After 12 months of good payment history, I should reiterate, those deposits are credited back to their account. So that just becomes a credit on their account, and then it just goes from there again. If their water's shut off again after that, we collect another deposit. So doing some research on the accounts that are finalized, when an account is finalized, that final bill, the deposit is credited, it pays that final bill, and about 75% of those roughly the customer receives a refund. So instead of us having to send them to collections for that final bill, which gets missed a lot. So it is helping reduce that number of accounts that we're sending to collections. We also do delinquent calls before we shut the water off. So we'll do a reminder call. So if their bill's due on Thursday, they get a reminder call on Friday if the bill has not been paid. That way it's a robocall that just says, hey, you still have a past due balance. Then the following week, the week before they would be scheduled for shut off at 45 days past due, we do another robocall that says you have a delinquent balance, you have to pay it by this day to avoid shut off. After that, which is the Monday of the previous week, after that day, we run another list, and it gets put into a spreadsheet, and our customer service team calls or emails each individual customer. We don't always get 100% of that second call done, just depending on staff and those things, but everyone who is delinquent gets that first robocall. So they get plenty of notice. And we found that of those people that we actually make contact with, about 52% of them get their payments made before they're on that shut-off list the following week. It ties into meter services as well. In 2024, their shut-off percent was 45. So 45% of that list, they would get shut off. And so those accounts just continued, the ones that didn't get shut off just continued to get further and further past due. In 2025, they've increased that to 79%. So a lot of our collection calls are working. They're fully staffed, so they're out there getting people shut off, and we're getting those payments in. They also, one of their main focuses was also zero reads. So there was a lot of accounts that were coming in as zero reads, and in January 6th of 25, they started with 1,395 accounts in the city that were zero reads. And as of yesterday, they had 62. So they've gone through all those accounts and, weeded out the ones that are vacant or should be a zero read. And so they're making great strides on that as well. It all just kind of ties into getting the payments in timely, as well as reducing that amount of collections or accounts that we're sending to collections. Right now, we're getting about 96.4% of the accounts paid before they're 30 days past due. And we're getting about 99% before they're 60 days past due. So it's working. And the number of accounts that we sent to collections has also dropped significantly in the past year. In 2024, we sent 617 accounts to collections. And in 2025, we sent 367. So we've almost cut it in half. So all of our efforts and what we were able to do with changing that to get us the capability to do that is helping decrease the amount of money that's out there that we are not collecting. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Yep.
So on, if it got sent to collections, you have $1 total like this past year?
So I have a dollar total. Yeah. So in 2024, it was 123,000, about 300 is what we sent. And in 2025, it was 107,000.
And of that, what got collected?
That I don't have in what the collections team has helped us achieve or get back. I don't know that for sure.
And Mayor,
Yeah,
one
you
last
betcha.
one. So when would you come back to council for writing accounts off? Like it goes through collections for say 6 months or a year?
Do you know, can you help me with that, Jill?
Mayor, Counselor. So actually, we come back to council every, right at the end of the fiscal year with whatever we're going to write off. And usually it's 5 years is how long those stay in collections. So after they've been in collections for 5 years and they really don't believe that there's any chance of recovering that money, that's when we would come forward and request that we write those off.
Okay.
The questions? Yep. Kyle.
Thank you. Ladies, my question, the robocalling, does that appear to be from a City of Casper number, or is that like a 1-800 number?
It comes through as our hotline, as our number, the 235-8400. So yep, it does come through to show that it's a government. Sometimes it says government and sometimes City of Casper, it just depends on what.
So fair to say we probably get little feedback in regards to, I didn't pick up this phone call because it looked like spam. That's not a common.
We do get some of that. And I think that's where our follow-up call the next days of the week, where we're calling from the number again. We do have some that say we don't answer those, but we've tested it to make sure that it is leaving a voicemail. So it does say this is the City of Casper. You have a past due balance. Yeah.
Others?
Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, thanks for all the good information. So I had a couple of questions from phone calls and emails I've gotten about the first one was about is the city still able to get, and are residents still able to get LEAP funds? And a question today where the impression the person had was that this was for her parents, was that they were no longer able to use LEAP for city water, but I think LEAP may be available for
LEAP
gas, electric, or-
is available for gas and electric. When we did LEAP, it was called LEAP-WAP.
Okay,
Yep, and so that was they only approved that for 1 year. I'm not exactly sure, but it was, I think 23 into 24. And then for 24, 25, they didn't approve it again.
I-
So,
That was
yeah,
a legislative.
Yeah.
initiative. I see.
yep. So but Lee App does do, as far as I know, the
Yeah.
electric and gas.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
But Lee WAP was just a one
okay,
that as far as I know of, so.
okay. And then the other question was about the, is it 7.5% of customers are enrolled in electronic billing? That's it?
That's
Really?
it.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the ACH?
No, electronic billing is just where they receive their bill via email.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know the numbers for ACH exactly, but that's just the number that doesn't receive a paper bill.
Sure, sure. 7 point,
Yeah,
so
it's
everybody
very
else
low.
is getting
Yes, and I believe, we're gonna discuss that too, but a lot of that was due to, they wanted their bill to go to the bail fill, I believe. A lot of people wanted it printed.
oh, I
Because,
see.
but now it's no longer on the bill
Okay.
to go to the bail fill. It's all electronic now.
So you've got a majority still getting paper.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I've heard this concern a couple of times was the dollar fee, because I think my impression was that most people would migrate to the e-billing.
Yeah.
And then those that chose not to, it would probably because lack of, they either didn't have access or had limited access or
Yeah.
ability to use technology. So that was a factor too. High numbers still. Okay.
And now, I mean, my opinion too, with the mail system these days, it would be way better for people to have e-billing,
Sure.
because they're not getting their bills timely, because it takes so long.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate you bringing that up because I spoke to at least one person recently that was complaining about not getting a bill until after the due date or something like that. Do you have any information on, especially since our, processing center or whatever got moved down to Denver? Has that had an impact on timeliness of people receiving their mail?
We get a lot of complaints about people not receiving their bill timely. I don't have a lot of knowledge about, when they're getting them or how many customers are affected by that. I do know, like, for example, bill pay checks that we get, sometimes a customer will initiate that bill pay check and it takes 3 weeks to get to us sometimes. So it's just, gone are the days of you send something today and it gets there tomorrow. It takes a long time. And, other people get them within a few days, and some people it takes 2 weeks, so.
Other questions?
Yeah, I do have one more. So another question then about the date due on billing. Am I understand correctly that some bills go out, there's a group of bills that go out on the first of the month, or they either go out or are due in the first month and the 15th of the month?
So our bills are, the city's broken up into 4 districts.
Okay.
So every Friday of when there's 4 months or 4 Fridays in the month. So the first, second, third, and fourth Friday of the month is when those bills go out. So District 1 is always the first Friday,
I
and it's
see.
due 30 days from the date of that bill.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's how those work.
So it's the first, second, third, fourth
Yep.
Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any, I think the question that this person had was about is there any flexibility in that in terms of?
There's
but you
not
kinda
right
have
now.
to go by
Yeah.
zone?
It's by zone. Yep.
Yeah.
It's broken into those districts specifically so that they can get them all read in that time, because they do the reads on Monday. We get the bills sent out on Friday.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Val.
Sorry,
You're okay.
keep coming up with new thoughts. Didn't gather myself before the meeting. Reading the memo, I was a little bit confused. Financial consideration portions. It says the cost for both mailed and email bills together is 74 cents a bill. If we remove the email bill, it costs 79 cents per bill to print and mail. I guess that's not clear to me, so
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the first one is all the bills together. So every bill in one lump, if we were to take the amount of money that it costs, it's 74 cents. If we take the people who aren't getting a paper bill, the email, the 7.5% out, it's 79 cents. If we're just charging just for the ones that we mail that bill out to.
Okay, do we get some sort of bulk discounting then or something? Like the more mail we send, the better price we get? Or I'm sorry, I guess I'm still not following.
No, I was just breaking it down by the actual costs of what it was. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if we're sending out 22,729 bills each month, 1,534 of which are emailed, that leaves what, 20? It's over 20,000 that we're mailing direct. And if
Yeah.
it's 74 cents each, I was just kind of curious what that monthly cost looks like.
Yeah, so there is a small cost for email. I think it's like 2 cents. So I just kind of broke it down for the amount of total bills we had versus what is in our budget for that. And then if we were to take out the emailed bills, that's how much like it would cost just for those printed to customers.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Pat. I was reading the same thing. Kyle, let's go ahead.
You were daydreaming.
He was.
I was.
Don't let him fetch you.
I was reading Pat.
Oh, thank you. So are we utilizing, at one time, it seems to me, we might have been using now in Casper service to print mail. Who do we utilize now? Is that a out-of-state company?
It is, it's called Postal Pros and BDS, correct? Yeah, sorry. I'm fairly new to this. So yeah, we use Postal Pros and BDS, so they are out of state.
Is that part of the problem? I mean, that I'm assuming we bid that out from time to time, but to those companies, but are they like in Texas? Is that part of the
I don't-
problem with?
Jill, can you help me with that? Do you know where they are?
Mayor,
Be-
Counselor, I do
yeah.
not know where they are located physically.
I'm wondering, Mayor, if that's part of the problem with mail times and lead times, but on getting your bill, so. Just curious.
I think it's like potential. Anybody else? Jill, you have anything else for us?
Yes, sir. So Mayor, Counselor, so the second part of this discussion is going to be talking about electronic bills. So back when staff originally discussed the changes to the utility billing ordinance, the ordinance is 13.03. This was back in 23, 24, 2023, and 2024. Electronic billing was part of this discussion. So the new software at the time, we had resident access, which was just coming online. And that was giving us the ability, giving the citizens the ability to go in themselves and sign themselves up for an electronic bill versus getting a paper bill. So when we originally talked about this, there were 3 points that were brought up that were challenges that we needed to work through. The first one was, there was a question that, can the city require customers to receive their bills electronically? Can we require that? And after speaking with the legal department, it was determined that the city cannot require every citizen to get their bill electronically. However, we can impose a fee to reimburse the city for the expenses of producing that paper bill. The second thing that came up was kind of the opposite side. So what if we had people who were signing up for electronic bills? Could we give them a discount of some kind? And so we tried to work that into our system to see if it would work. And we found that our system is very limited, where we could not put in a negative charge. So if you were getting electronic bill, we would give you a discount off of your bill. It would not allow that. So we have a system limitation there, where at this point in time, I do not believe that we can do a discount for an electronic bill. And then the third item, kind of that was already brought up, was the concern about not having a paper bill to take to the landfill, so we can utilize the landfill pass. Currently, the landfill has moved to an electronic pass, and we no longer print those passes on our utility bills. So those were the things that we really talked about back at that point in time. So I wanted to talk about the customer service division. So the customer service division currently budgets $275,000 to print and mail bills. As we've already talked about, they print and mail about 20,500 bills in a month, which is about 246,000 bills in a year. So we've also already discussed about 7% of those are being electronic, which is a very, very small percentage. So the approximate cost, the one that I pulled out of the memo was going to be the 79 cents per bill. So our utility rates that you guys approve every year or every 2 years, they cover 100% of the cost of the customer service division. So what that means is that everyone through their rates are paying for these paper bills to be sent out. So even if you're a customer that receives an electronic bill, you're still paying paper bills through your rate. So by having this $1 fee, the customers who have opted to have a paper bill sent to them would then be the ones who are paying for that service. So with that, that's all I've got for the paper bills, but I'm happy to answer any questions related to that.
I'll go with the vice mayor and then I'll get you, Pat.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Jill. I'm just trying to, expecting kind of what the feedback is. The dollar though, so it sounds like it's 79 cents cost of postage to mail it.
Mayor, Councilor, actually it's to print the bill, so the paper, the ink, that type of thing, plus the postage. That is correct.
79 cents. Is there a reason we're not just, is $1 easier logistically to make happen than 79 cents surcharge?
Councilor, yes, sir. It was just rounded up to the dollar.
So let's go back to, I'm still getting complaints over the Bell film. Say that first. So, but so some of the same people I've brought up about electronic billing that also have the problem with bail fill. They are not comfortable with that. Most people I'm talking to are seniors. Some of them are disabled, some are not. But so I'd like to walk back and talk about, you can easily put on a $1 fee, but for those that sign up for electronic billing, you cannot do a $1 credit. Is that what I'm to understand? And if so, have you really explored the software provider, why you couldn't do that?
Mayor, Councilor, we actually did try to do a negative charge on our bill, and the system does not allow that at all. We can certainly do more research, but in our testing of the abilities of our software, it was not permitted.
Go ahead, Pat.
So I'm assuming, like some of the things that Department of Transportation has, they actually built that whole system 30, 40 years ago and just now have updated and done a whole lot here recently. But so do we use something in-house software that, or a program that we built? Or do we use something that we've bought that material off the shelf from a supplier?
So, Mayor, Councilor, we actually use a product called Tyler. Munis is the name of the software. It is a medium-sized government accounting software that is built for medium-sized governments. When you say, is it off the shelf? It is a product that other governments use. However, it is very customizable. So when we originally went with Munis back in 2018, 2019, it was built at that time, and reports and all of that kind of stuff were built for us to use. The main bulk of the software, though, is designed by Tyler to accommodate government type services. And utility billing is a very uniquely government type of service.
So have we explored with them, you know, is there something in the software with a minor revision that could apply a credit? Because you apply credits, let's say when they've reached that year on their deposit, giving a credit back, because I'm assuming we don't send them a check. I'm assuming it's credited in their bill. So there's got to be a way, there's a way to accept a credit that way.
Mayor, Counselor, so when we, two different types of credit. So to put a charge, so when they create the bill, they charge the customer for their water, sewer, and trash. We can't put a charge, a negative charge on the bill. It just doesn't work. They can't do that. When you overpay your bill or you have a deposit that we are then applying to those charges, that creates an overpayment that we can then refund. But it is not a negative charge on our bill. So I trying to not make this in the minutia, but there is a difference in the way that those two credits are put on the bill.
Any follow-ups, Pat?
So just a statement, I'm
Sure.
not going to vote for $1 increase. I would certainly respectfully ask, going back to the software developer or this company, I don't think we're unique, that unique, but perhaps we are. That there's some sort of variance that could be added, but in my legislative experience, that always comes with a huge fee, like $275,000 to do a little update. So I'm not in favor of that, but I certainly would appreciate asking, you know, the developer or whoever we get this from. Is any other municipality out there in the country exploring similar things that they could share? And is there a way through this? Because the folks I've talked to feel it's the dollar added for a paper bill is double dipping in their mind. So I guess I don't disagree.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Thanks, Mayor. I would agree with Pat in the sense that if we haven't, I appreciate staff kind of experimenting and doing what you can, but if we've not reached out to third-party support through Tyler to see if it's a feature that, you know, I know some of these programs can be super complicated and all, it might just be a checkbox in the background kind of thing. So I would, if we haven't done that, I would appreciate us reaching out to the third-party support to see if they can help us out with that. I don't think we should ask them to rewrite any of the software. Like Pat said, that's going to be really expensive. So yeah, I would agree with that. But also a rebuttal, I would say, to the folks that think that's double dipping. Finance has articulated to us that whether we add a surcharge to people that choose paper billing or continue to distribute it to everyone, it's absorbed by the rates. And so at least in my mind, there's a slight premium at a dollar rate, but the cost to print and publish and distribute is 80 cents. So it's either it's absorbed by everyone through the rates or you pay a surcharge, but you're paying, somebody's paying for it. So I guess I would push back on the notion that it's double dipping. This is a, reallocation of who's funding that. And it sounds like city staff's recommendation is that the people that want the paper billing should shoulder the burden of the cost, which I don't think is totally unreasonable, but I totally get where you're coming from as far as there are some folks that, even the $12 a year on a fixed income, their social security check isn't going up, can have an impact. So I guess my question is there any appeals or is there any if somebody calls you, says, I do not have email, I do not have access to the internet, I will not be able to receive my email version of my bill, and I'm on a fixed income, I just can't make this happen. Is there any flexibility there? Are we able to waive it at all, or is it kind of a hard set? We set the structure and we got to abide by it kind of thing.
Mayor, Councillor, at this point in time, we haven't gotten that far. We were just presenting it to council to see if you were even interested in going down this road. If you would like to have some kind of way that people could claim a hardship of some kind, we could explore that.
Mayor,
Okay, do you have a follow-up, Kyle?
I was just going to say, like the landfill billing, there's people that their mother-in-law needs them to take trash up to the landfill, paper bill. They do not share the same last name, so there's circumstances that I think warrant legitimate flexibility and exceptions to the rule. And so I would definitely support that. And yeah, I'd like to reach out to Tyler, and I'm sure our contract provides some level of support from them. And so would like to see if they can help us out at all with the discount application portion.
We'll get you, Mike.
so Jill has helped one of my constituents in particular on hardship case. He doesn't get his check. He's always behind. And so she tried to work, I wouldn't say work around, but try to figure a path forward for him so he wasn't always delinquent. The additional, what is it, $10, $20 on late fee is what he was up against consistently. So I'm not saying they definitely have tried to work with the other gentleman on the double dipping comment came, and Cindy ended up helping him up at the landfill because he needed to get rid of a recliner because he got a new recliner. He had to have help, and the helper already knew that he was going to get stopped, that the water bill wasn't going to work. So he had called up but wanted to let me know, that it's just not right, for disabled vets and disabled people to. So I took the opportunity to ask him about what he would think. And he said, number one, I've got a cell phone, but I don't have, you brought up a very good point. He does not have a computer, wouldn't have a way to print out an electronic bill, and does not feel comfortable paying it through the phone, nor do I, but so.
Do you want to say anything about that? You don't have to, Jill.
I don't know response to that. We certainly try and help everybody that we can. We understand that there are challenges out there in the community. Just to be clear, we don't require anybody to pay anything electronically, and nor do we require anybody to get their bill electronically. We are just trying to reduce our costs and really have the people who are asking for that service to pay for that service.
Michael.
Thanks, Mayor. So yeah, I'm having a tough time getting behind that dollar fee as well. And it, in the scheme of things, it doesn't feel like a lot, but with the utility rate increases we've already done, it feels it feels punitive. And you know, I mean, I know with with most bills that, you know, you always get that choice. Would you like to go paperless? Yes or no? Would you like to go paperless? And it's offered multiple times. So I'm wondering if that's possible through an email process to encourage folks, because out of 22,000 some, and with only 1,700 and some getting electronic billing, it seems like I'm surprised by that more folks wouldn't be, just for the convenience of it. You know, it seems like. So that makes me wonder, okay, is there more we could do in terms of promoting and encouraging and offering that multiple times to folks to do that, go paperless? But yeah, so like I said, it's not a big deal in the scheme of things, but I think to our customers, it feels particularly punitive, I think. And so, but yeah, thank you.
So Mayor, if I could respond to
You
that.
bet.
So I know it doesn't feel like a lot. I mean, it's $1.
Yeah.
But when you look at 22,000 bills that we send out and
Yeah.
you look at it over the course of a year and $275,000 in our budget that we're using to print and mail bills.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge number.
For sure.
So again, just trying to be responsible with taxpayer dollars and making sure that we can. When I have people that call me and they say, you know, I can't pay my bill and I need a little bit extra time or whatever the case may be, you know, I get those concerns where I don't get my bill in time or I get it after the due date or something like that. And my first question is, why don't we sign you up for electronic billing?
Yeah.
And most of the time people are like, yeah, that'd be great. So maybe we could do something else, some kind of a mail campaign, or I know that there's a way that we can put some messages on the utility bills that say, hey, remember we have electronic billing if you want to sign up. But again, we cannot require anybody to do that. So we are hoping that people will be more open to the electronic bill. But again, I'm just trying to make sure that we are being responsible with taxpayer dollars.
Sure. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people are still kind of adjusting to needing the paper bill to go to the landfill. And so I think as that migration happens, and folks, you know, maybe have that opportunity to sign up more, I think hopefully more will kind of migrate. But I can certainly understand that that's an incentive to migrate to electronic billing. So I sure get that as well.
Randy.
I'm gonna get you with a couple here, Pat, because I have a few things. So somebody who uses a super user-friendly billing system, the way I'm wrapping my brain around this is a negative charge is not an automatic thing. Interest charge, super easy. They'll let you add a charge to anything. However, adding $1 credit to each of our bills for electronic would be a manual thing. So we would be asking someone to manually add $1 credit to each bill. That's how I'm looking at it for us to be able to do that, which is not feasible. So that's how I'm wrapping my brain around a pay versus credit situation to make that work in my head. As for the landfill, I was fired up the other day when I realized. I called and I was like, I'm sending my brother, and they said, well, we don't have a permission for him anymore. I was going to come in here and raise. Anyways, I have now sent myself, my daughter, my husband, 4 people to the dump. I've almost used my whole year in the last couple of weeks. Not one issue, not one. They were like, what's your address? Who's it for? I didn't have a single problem, and I was ready to go to bat. It's so easy. Like, I would love to be like, oh, well, they knew it was me. Nobody knows who I am. It's easy. I knew it was going to be hard. It's not hard. We think it's going to be hard. It's not. I only got carded 2 times, and they were super cool to my daughter, and she would have left in a heartbeat if she could have. So the landfill is not as hard as I thought it might be. There's no problems there. How many of our bills right now, I do have 2 questions for you, so don't you pass me. How many times
Off the floor,
have
you're
our bills?
you're scaring me anyway.
got it.
I don't want to cross you.
How
Randy.
many times have the bills, since we had this first conversation a second ago, said, sign up for electronic billing?
Mayor, Counselor, let me make sure I understand your question. How many that I've talked to?
No, how many of the bills that you have mailed me say, go paperless? All of them?
I do not know the answer to that, Counselor.
Yeah, I don't believe we change that message from time to time. I do know every new customer has the option of, when we sign them up, they have the option of going paperless. It's on our application now.
Okay.
But it will be on the bills. Because,
So,
I mean, right now we have a different message on there, but
so we can start that process to start before we bully people. I haven't opened my bill in 4 years. I get it every month. I save it. I have probably 6 years worth of water bills, but I have not opened one in 4 years. And I remember this distinctly because we had talked about, we'll put it in there. And I don't know if you put it in there because that would have required me to open it to see. I have not signed up for e-billing because I don't know how. So my proposal would be maybe we start that. And then can we ask these nice billing people, maybe one time, even if just one time, change the color of our bills? So I'm like, wonder why this is pink. Just so that everybody in Casper can be like, oh yeah, I did get that pink bill that probably told me I should go electronic before you started charging me $1. Because you'll charge me $1. I'll have no idea because I didn't open my water bill. But I pay online. I don't need to open it. So I don't. But I and if I did open it, I would have already gone electronic because I would know how. So I do think, not that everybody's not watching this video and being like, you're right, Brandy, I should do that.
Deal with people.
Maybe we need to have some really good way to at least say, well, we tried to tell you. Maybe a colored bill would be a good idea. That's where my brain goes. I send red bills when I want people to open mine at the office. By the way, if you get a red bill from my building, you're in trouble. But those would be my requests and also comments to the people that I wanted to help you and I can't. It's just too easy.
As far as the bay fill, I mean.
All right, I'm done now. You can have the floor back.
Just don't want to cross your path.
I
Just
know why
kidding.
I'm down here.
You know? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for the redundancy. Just want to make sure I understand this crystal clear. The $275,000 we budget for mailing is borne entirely and exclusively by the enterprise funds. So again, it's either all the ratepayers pay for it or just the ones that would prefer to have. Those are the two options.
Mayor, Counselor, that is correct. So in that $207, there is also some money that is set aside for printing and mailing delinquent notices. We cannot email those. Those need to go out paper. So when you do the math, you'll notice that it's not quite the 275, but yes, that whole entire amount of money for that division is entirely covered by the rates.
Somebody else? I'll just put my 2 cents in. I think as far as the dollar rate, I think it's, I agree with the city staff. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, trying to be careful about our budget. And I think this is a fair approach to be able to do that. And it sounds like there's safeguards if there are people that are going to struggle with it or have those. It sounds like the city staff does a really good job of meeting them where they're at. And so to me, $1 is fair. And I think it's also, you know, important for us as council members. We always talk about budget conscious and trying to do those things. We always kind of get hit right with that. I think this is just one of those things that we can look at to be, you know, somewhat mindful of the taxpayer dollars when we do that. So I'm in favor of the $1 for the paper bill, kind of see where everybody else is at. What I did hear, there was a couple different things, unless there's any other more questions before I move on for us to, did you have anything, Jill, that you needed to touch base on? Okay. To move forward with recommendations, it sounds like to approve the $1 paper bill or the $1 for the paper bill fee is on the table as well. But I also heard a couple of the different things, recommendations from the council about going back to the software to see if it's possible for us to be able to look at that. Was that fair? Okay. Is that something we can give direction to look back, to go back to the software company and ask them if there's possibility of crediting as what I heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So was there anything else? It sounds like, Pat, you had asked about hardship possibly as an option, but it sounds like you guys are already doing hardship options and to a certain extent to talk to
residents?
Mayor, we do each situation as it comes up. And yes, we do work with citizens to make sure that we aren't creating undue hardship.
So Pat, you had mentioned wanting to have some type, or maybe it was you, Michael, about having a hardship option. Who could apply for it? I can't remember. To me, it seems like there's some level where we're doing that right now. Is there anything specific, Pat, that you had wanted within that context?
I think before, I would ask before, unless council
Mhm.
outvotes me, which is very possible. But I would ask that first we check with the company, the billing company, and ask, has this come up from time to time? You know, with other municipalities that use the same software that are trying to go electronic. Has it occurred? Well, maybe the answer is, well, yeah, why are you asking? Right. And is it a simple fix? If it's not a simple fix, what would be the dollar amount? You know, is it $5,000? Is it $500,000 to rewrite the program? So, and then come back with that information.
I think that's fair. That's something you'd be okay with, Jill?
Mayor,
We've
of
looked at-
course, we would be happy to explore that.
Michael, you're giving a face.
Well, I'm just thinking that in some sense, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but in some sense, if you have electronic billing, you're getting a discount. Right? If not, you're getting the dollar charge, or would get the dollar charge, right? So if you get electronic billing, you don't get billed the dollar. There's your discount. So I don't know. Is that
Kyle.
a way to look at it?
No, I hear what you're saying. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of along those lines, I'm sorry, it's coming to me as I'm thinking about it. Say we do find an avenue for, I always prefer carrot over the stick, which is why I was open to the dollar discount. But as I'm thinking about this, if it costs us 79 cents to mail, somebody chooses to do email instead, we're saving the 79 cents. But if we're giving them a $1 discount from their bill,
It's costing us 20 cents.
are we not adding to kind of the administrative costs of, it makes me worry that that doesn't actually achieve what we're hoping.
Mayor, Counselor, that was brought up back when we originally talked about this. Is it truly getting us where we want to go? And maybe not.
Because I'm thinking, again, if we're mailing out, again, it's 20,000 bills a month. Yeah, I mean, I did the math. It sounds like we're spending about $16,388 a month for mailing. If we go from 1,500 people getting emails to over 20,000, given $20,000 of discount a month, more than the 16,388 cost for mailing. So that's my worry, is we end up upside down if we go that way.
Mayor, Counselor, and that's because we're doing the dollar versus the 79 cents.
Okay.
Why not a 50-cent discount? Also, I think if we not only explore the software thing, but start a campaign on our Facebook page and our web page of get you signed up for e-billing. I know I just haven't seen anything on it, so I never signed up. So I still get a paper bill at my home as well as one of my businesses, and so I'm more than willing to have the e-bill. I just haven't seen if we get that campaign going, different color bill. I like that. It's a cool idea.
You gotta get our attention.
To
We're
get their
terrible.
attention. Yeah. Yep. Right. We get so used to that we don't pay attention, but I think we need to increase our campaigning on it and before we make a decision to charge additional, or I think we need to look at those two options
Before charging the dollar.
before charging the dollar. Yeah.
Counselors, I was just going to project and note that I think that the communities maybe had an incentive for people to get the paper bills because of the bail fill passes, right? With that change being fairly recent, it seems like we could likely make some headway if we market paperless. And maybe we could do that not only in Jill's section, but we could work with the folks out at the landfill to maybe hand out a piece of paper to people who come through or
That's a great
something
idea.
of that nature. So I hear your hesitancy around the paper billing. I agree with the director. I mean, 275,000, $250,000 a year is a notable amount, but maybe we need to take 6 months or so and explore how quickly we could get the community to convert to more than 7% e-billing now that there is no longer that incentive to get the paper bill so you can get out to the bail field. So how do you feel about that, Jill and Ann?
Mayor, Madam City Manager, I think that that's a great idea. Let's see what we can do.
So we could take 6 months or so, do some hard press to get people aware of the e-billing option and maybe come back in the fall with some data.
A little bit.
Seem okay?
Yep. Is council okay with that? Be a little bit more thoughtful moving forward. Is that good with you guys? Yeah. Go ahead.
If I could just add one thing, I appreciate that the conversation was really focused on paperless billing, but I can't let these ladies leave the podium without just acknowledging the other portion of their presentation and the notable achievements they've made. I'm looking at an increase in collection rate of about 2% in 12 months. And some of that's due to council change. A lot of it is due to the work they've been doing and changes in their customer service practices. So I just want to thank you very much for your hard work and appreciate and acknowledge the change you've made.
Thank you guys for your hard work. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, one more before they sneak out. I'm so sorry.
No, no,
I
you're
feel
sure.
bad.
We're used to it, Kyle.
When, I know, even I'm embarrassed. When folks sign up for new utility accounts, do they automatically get a paper bill or can we make that opt-in? Like new utility accounts, can we make paper billing opt-in if it's already? Okay. Thanks for the affirmation. Have a great day. I'll let you go. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to budget amendment number 2. Janine, I'll give that to you.
With that, we will not let Director Johnson have a seat. And we will ask her to remain at the podium. This is your second budget amendment of the year, which I believe is a fairly routine procedure to have a second and potentially a third budget amendment. Your packet clearly articulates the major aspects of that budget amendment. And I believe Director Johnson and her accounting staff will also provide some additional detail.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Good to be still here at the podium. So as the city manager has already mentioned, we do 3 budget amendments every year. This is a fairly routine process. We do our first one at the beginning of the year. It's doing all of our rollovers that we didn't get done for the prior year. Our second budget amendment is really kind of catching things up, grants that we've received, some changes that we need to make within the projects. But again, it's usually our smallest one. And then as we get toward the end of the year, we do our third budget amendment, which just kind of ties everything up for the year. So with that, our accounting staff actually put this budget amendment together. So I'm going to introduce Mr. Steve Fagenet, and he is our senior accountant. And he is the wizard behind this budget amendment. And I'm going to turn some time over to him if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Mayor, councilors, thank you for your time. As Jill mentioned, we usually do 3 budget amendments. This is the second. In this budget amendment, we have 38 changes, project changes that is, which are highlighted in Amendment B of the attachments. I kind of summarized throughout the memo just 8 major changes that we're making. The first being the reservoir project loan reduction. We are reducing this loan by $2 million, revenue and expense side. Bids came in under budget, so we're reducing that from 12 million to 10 million. The second being the FY26 priority water main replacement. This is increasing expense by $1 million. This is kind of a miscellaneous project that water has essentially to be able to respond to any water main replacements they have to do throughout the fiscal year that aren't specifically identified throughout the capital plan. The main purpose of this is we had an emergency tank repair on the Sun 1 tank, and so this is kind of replenishing those funds. Funding for this amendment comes from 1 cent money that is already in their fund. The third being the I-25 marginal phase 2. YDOT has, I forget exactly where it is. I think it's over by East, thank you, Alex. It's on the east side. YDOT has gone out to bid on this. We're hoping to piggyback on this bid. That way we can do the water main replacement while they have this dug up. So that way it's a lot cheaper for us. The fourth being the increased wastewater treatment cost. This is increasing expense by 8.
So where is that in regards, like around Bryan Stock Trail or?
Sorry.
No, please.
Mayor, councilors, so YDOT's working on phase 3 of the I-25 marginal. And so basically that's from McKinley Street all the way to Yellowstone. We have some utility replacements, water and sewer, that are just east of there as well, that got added onto the project because it was necessary to do while YDOT was making those repairs.
Thank you.
The fourth is the increased wastewater treatment cost. The wastewater treatment plant had increased costs of $1,014,000. This was seen in BUA 1, as well as we have some increases in BUA 2. Of that, 85% of that is the city's cost that the sewer fund has to pay. So there's the $861,000. The fifth being transit grant award.
Could we also ask?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
is
anytime.
this, or do you want to wait till the end?
Why don't you take note? Let's do that. Let's go ahead and let the staff get through it, Pat, and then we'll have you ask questions. Sorry about that. That's a good, thank you.
The fifth being 2 transit grant awards, which was the first is security fence and lighting project. This is a total of $300,000 with a 80-20, 20% match that is coming from capital fund. And the second being a garage floor and adding improved drainage in their fleet garage. That is for $200,000 with a 80-20 match as well for $40,000 coming from the capital fund. The sixth is the North Platte Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Wolf Creek repair, which is increasing expenses in the in the wastewater treatment plant fund by $360,000. This kind of ties in with Amendment 4, part of that $1,014,000, and the 85% gets covered by the sewer. This is the other side of the wastewater treatment plant. The seventh is we had health insurance costs increase mid-year. We were notified in October that health insurance costs for all plans were increasing. Employee-only plans increased 6.26. Employee and child plans, employee and spouse plans, and family plans increased 6.34%, and split plans increased 6.28%. So this is just budgeting the increase in healthcare. And then the eighth is fire callback and call out pay. This has fully been depleted. We budgeted $300,000 to start the fiscal year. This has fully been depleted due to increased staffing on the ladder truck to make those full time. So it's added increased call outs. So this is to add another additional $300,000 to hopefully make it through the year. To summarize the financial considerations, additional spending of $4,247,091 of additional expenses. And then we had revenue decrease $672,580,000, mainly due to that $2 million loan reduction. Then the net budget impact of this then comes to $4,919,671. That is summarized by fund on attachment A. And then attachment B summarizes the projects of which make up this 38.
Questions? I'm gonna hand it to you, Pat. I know you got a couple.
Thank you, Mayor. So first off, on number 1, so wasn't the SLIB that loan already approved for a certain amount? In how are we able to decrease that loan amount by $2 million?
Mayor, councilors, we have not received that loan yet. We have not drawn down. So we put in an amendment to the loan to reduce that by the cost needed.
Mayor, I saw Ethan get up. Did we review regional water?
Mayor, councilors. This is a City of Casper project, the City Reservoir,
So,
and this reduction is in relation to an engineering estimate provided by our engineering consultant on the project. They expect the cost for this project to be lower. So as a result, SR our loan amount. So that's what this budget amendment change is reflecting.
so follow to that. So is it prudent, being it hasn't gone out to bid? It's just an engineering estimate at this point in time? Is that what, is it prudent to decrease this or increase the revenue at this point in time, or wait for the next budget?
Mayor, councilors, SRF has already told us that the loan amount is reduced. So the awarded loan amount, we're just matching our budget to what was awarded in the loan amount.
Questions? And if you have others, I know probably on some.
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
On number 2, actually, I don't think I had a question on that. So 3 totally makes sense if it's within where YDOT's already gonna have stuff torn up, was my understanding in that, in those limitations. So number 4 on the wastewater treatment cost. So I'm curious how, I mean, that seems like a lot more expense having occurred, going to occur. So if I could get a little bit.
Mayor, councilors, so the entities say that we split the cost for everything that goes into the wastewater treatment plant. And so with the additional costs that we've had with the Wolf Creek project, where the interceptor is being undermined, where and what were the other factors?
There was the 39.5 for the patient. There was one from the budget amendment.
Oh, yes. The other one was that we had that the wastewater treatment plant master plan. We had originally budgeted for that in FY25, but because we couldn't get that under contract before the end of the fiscal year, that had to be rebudgeted in this budget year. So those are the 2 major components of this added cost. And although we accounted for that in our pro forma and our cost estimates previously, it's hitting our budget this year instead of last year with that master plan.
And excellent job at the DEQ. Very impressive. I felt like an idiot getting up there after.
Oh, thank you.
So, but thank you. That was great. And then, Mayor, if I could, if on number 5 on the transit grant awards, so it seems to me that we had already received some grants, and then on the painting and some other things, and then the bids came in too high and those were rejected. Does that have anything to do with any of these awards?
Mayor, councilors, no, sir, that is a completely separate project. And most of that is actually not grant funded. FTA really likes to keep their grants basically based on fleet and anything to protect the fleet. So that's why both these projects are kind of viewed as that. Those projects you're referring to are more about the office. So we have the HVAC and the rehabilitation of the office essentially. And most of that is actually city funded.
Thank you. And then, remind me, on number 7 on the I remember talking about this a few months ago, but are we tied in with the state plan? Is the state plan Blue Cross Blue Shield?
No, we do not have Blue Cross Blue Shield. We have Cigna.
Because I thought those increases were actually pretty minimal compared to
Mine,
how much did yours go up?
about 50.
And the mayor, if I could, on the fire callback and call out, are we trying to staff 2 ladder trucks or just our main 120 footer?
Mayor and councilors, we are not trying to staff 2 ladder trucks. The callback situation is not only based on the staffing. We have had I don't know if rash is the correct word, but we've had a lot of individuals that have been out on FMLA for extended periods of time, which if they're not at work, then we have to backfill to actually staff those units. We did late last year split the truck rescue. We used to have the truck and rescue at Station 1 together. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, we called it cross staffing, where if it was a rescue call, they would jump on the rescue. If it was a fire call, they would jump on the truck. The issue there is that we have multiple calls running at the same time. So sometimes we would have a unit that was not staffed. So we actually moved the ladder truck to Station 3. And then we had to increase our staffing by minimum staffing by 2 individuals. With that increase, and then also with the issue with people being on FMLA leave, disability, and then of course if somebody is sick or they have COVID, we don't want them to come to the station, because if they get somebody else sick, we could actually take out a whole station. So we do callbacks in order to facilitate being able to still staff the trucks and the stations and make sure that we're providing the service to the community.
Remind me what FMLA is.
The Medical Leave Act.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think Jeannie had some.
Through you, Mayor, Councilor Sweeney, in visiting with Chief Black, as you've heard, there's a convergence of factors: family medical leave, staffing issues. He also noted seasonal vacation use, illness, et cetera, and then the delay really in hiring those safer funded firefighters, those 10 positions after the pause occurred. So where I wanted to go with that was to let you know that Chief Black has indicated he believes there's just a convergence of factors that have kind of stacked and are causing this overtime to occur. But our best projection is that maybe by the end of fiscal 26, we'll be coming out of this convergence of factors and stacking that's kind of spiraling over time. Would you
Manager,
concur?
may I add something
Please.
that I forgot that is a huge factor that I did not include. We also have had a rash of retirements. We have had, in fact, right now, I have 2 individuals that are leaving in March. We just had 2 leave earlier last week. And we're at a point of, when I was hired on the fire department 25 years ago, 24 and change, there was a bunch of us that came on at the same time. I was hired in a group of 6. Right before me, there was a group of 5. Right after me, there were 6. And then there was another 6. So we're all getting to that point in our careers where we're eligible to retire. Now, unfortunately, they don't forecast and tell me exactly when they're going to leave. And sometimes it's short notice. Sometimes they give me a little more notice. But until I have that date, I can't actually hire for them. And then with that, I can't actually put them through an academy. I mean, just the instant they leave. So sometimes we'll be holding and waiting so we can actually send a couple people through an academy. Currently, we are testing. Actually, as of today, we were testing. Yesterday, we were doing our oral board testing. We have 58 candidates that are going through oral boards right now, so we can create a new list per civil service so that we can actually facilitate hiring more. So we are anticipating we're going to have 4 to 5 people in that next academy. Now, when we put them through the academy, they don't count as staffing right away. The academy takes 12 to 13 weeks. Then we actually have to do some training in-house. So it could be 5 months, 6 months before they actually count as staffing on a unit by the time they go through the academy and they're actually eligible to be on the trucks. So that is also detrimental. I think in my position as ops, I've hired over, I think I'm like at 36 people in the last 2 years that we've hired. So if you just also affects our staffing model. So, and we are trying to project and predict who's going to leave. But once again, just because you've hit 25 years of service and you're over 50 years old doesn't mean you have to leave. So, and these people have some great institutional knowledge and we don't want them to leave. So it's a tough situation sometimes.
So to that, have we already budgeted? You mentioned bringing on 5 people. Have we, the department already budgeted, the city budgeted for 5 people to go to academy? And
Yeah, and so we can do academy 2 ways. So the state of Wyoming has an academy that is typically held down in Cheyenne, and we utilize that when we can. But they only offer that twice a year. So depending on our staffing model, if we can meet those timelines when they're actually starting those academies, then we will try and utilize that. If that doesn't work, then we'll actually do an in-house academy. I'll have to pull some like captains and some trainers off the line, and they'll actually work days and actually train those individuals. With this group, I don't think we're going to make the March. It's the beginning of March when the Cheyenne Academy is going to take place. So we're probably going to have to do an in-house. Once somebody makes our list, it is a process still to get them hired. They have to go through background investigations. They have to go through an NFPA 1582 physical to make sure that they're fit to actually be a firefighter. We have psychologicals. I mean, it's a process. So as soon as I have that list certified, which it actually won't be certified till next week, February 4th, your best case scenario, 4 weeks probably to get somebody hired. Best case scenario. And then if they're moving from out of town, of course, that causes some issues too.
I'll just sort of wrap up, Councillor Sweeney, by sharing. I'll continue visiting with Chief Black and the rest of the department about this over the next 6 months. Certainly would be my goal that we move beyond this level of expenditure on overtime. But as you've heard, there are factors that are not necessarily always controllable by the city. So we will work on this and see if we can bring this more in line with budget appropriation.
thank you.
Thank you. Last call for questions. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So is council okay with approving, move this to a resolution?
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Jill. All right, stormwater planning and development review.
Okay, so council, we can let our friends in the financial department have a seat, and we're going to transition over to the public services department. I think you're all familiar with the reason that we wanted to talk about stormwater planning and development review tonight. I would remind you that we are not talking about any particular or specific development, but the intention for tonight was just to kind of refresh everybody's memory of what the city does for stormwater modeling and planning, and then how we use those studies and plans to review private developments that apply under the city's rules. So I'll leave it to the city engineer to walk you through that.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Thank you for having me here. So in the city's stormwater review process, when a party is interested in developing land within Casper, an initial application with necessary plans are submitted to city planning. When that application is complete, in form, and in order, the city planning division distributes that to city staff and other affected local agencies. That can be the county, that can be franchise utilities, others, for content review. And so of note are different forms that these applications might be in, such as subdivision of land properties, such as platting and subdivisions. Others can be design applications, such as site plans and plan or unit development, PUDs. But as the local regulatory agency, the city's main goals in development content reviews are to maximize responsible smart growth. Simply, we ensure compliance with safety ordinances, codes, zoning, subdivision rules. This includes utilities and stormwater drainage with natural hazards, erosion control, traffic, land use provisions, and other important community standards. We encourage infill development and smooth functional transitions between contiguous properties. Additionally, we try to facilitate efficient and streamlined reviews and approvals by all pertinent agencies having this jurisdiction, really with an emphasis on water supply, wastewater, traffic flows, and stormwater. But when our office, the city engineering office, receives these plats and site plans and other subdivision plans, we begin our initial site plan or subdivision storm review. And we first look at the existing site affected by the proposed changes and consider factors. And I have a long list of factors, but I'll read them out. We have factors like property ownership and boundaries, existing size and area, existing topography, existing stormwater and other utilities and existing infrastructure. That it could be existing water, sanitary sewer services, mains, distribution mains, and stormwater piping, swales, and drainage conveyances. Others like existing easements on both pervious and impervious surfaces. Curb and gutter, valley pans, existing formal natural and or inadvertent detention basins. And that can also be catch basins, inlets, and outlets. Can also be paving, buildings, rooftops, and existing pervious surfacing like landscaping or natural vegetation, soil types, and other really pertinent existing site features. That's what our process looks at, those existing things first to verify what the change is going to be. Then we look at the proposed site affected by the changes and the overlap of those expected differences yielded between the existing and proposed sites. And so that list I gave you before, that's pretty much what we try and overlap to make sure that any changes are in conformance. And so along with the mentioned existing and proposed plans and differences, we verify that there is reference and conformity to the 2013 Stormwater Management Master Plan. And I wanted to give this a field trip because it's been in my office, but this is what it is right here. It is located on the City of Casper website. And so we use that for the development under review. So the master plan is a comprehensive and analytical study to really the broader regional area of Casper and Natrona County. It provides planning at a conceptual level for realized stormwater system enhancements as well as deficiencies. And those were determined from breakdown of Casper's collective major drainage basins and stormwater infrastructure. So in our review process, we utilize this master plan to take a look at the projected growth areas affected and known stormwater performances of the drainage system. And really if the development was expected at the time of the master plan with any noted master plan stormwater recommendations. But more importantly, with the help of the master plan, we use it as a guide and a starting point in this phase of review. It is used to identify these potential improvements in the stormwater system, in capacity to protect the system from overburden and an allowance of conservative future growth. The design of all stormwater facilities must be in conformance with the master plan as well as the 1983 Stormwater Design Manual. It's this right here, also on a field trip. And so this is the city's very technical and analytical standard incorporating applied formulas and equations and criterion to apply stormwater standards. And really considers the regional hydrologic cycles of Casper from precipitation to runoff, utilizing really the modified rational method, which it gets into single peak stormwater hydrographs, which hydrographs show flow over time of stormwater events. And it models rain intensity. So these two manuals are very important for our reviews. So when these items are that are noted are distinguished and objective in the master plan, I guess they're found to be directly related to current development under review. A more detailed, I would say localized drainage study may be required. And so to identify these individual impacts and necessary remedies could be on-site detention, nearby stormwater infrastructure, extensions or oversizing, things like that. But additionally, we take into account potentials in growth that may not have been known at the time of the master plan when it was finalized and reasonably could not have been foreseen. So we have to take that into account as well. But typically in this process, there are multiple reviews and revisions. It is rare, especially for a developer who is new to Casper, for a content review to not require more than one revision. Typically there's multiple reviews, but the more detail our office can receive up front, the earlier in the process, the more we can be prepared to include remedies to anticipate stormwater impacts. But that's why the city offers pre-application meetings for preliminary reviews to benefit all the parties. So I should mention that in our process, depending on the proposed use of a site, we look at if the proposed plan affects less than 10,000 square feet. It may not require a drainage study, but this really depends on the proposed use change from the existing. If it's larger, it's more likely to, but again, we look at what that change in use is. We look at that change from existing to proposed. That's pretty important. So when a drainage study is required, our minimum necessary items that we require, and they're both technical and analytical, are that we have a certified engineer stamp that drainage study. We require compliance to the design manual here. And then we require preliminary design with a layout of existing storm sewer and proposed storm sewer work, and that includes descriptions and locations of the proposed work and detention ponds if they are proposed. We also require data and supporting calculations for pre-developed historic and post-developed flows for both 10-year and 100-year storm events. A question that's often asked is, what is a 10-year or a 100-year storm? So I can elaborate a little bit on that. So storm events like 10-year, 20-year, 50-year, 100-year storms are calculated using long-term rainfall records, and they're that are really statistically analyzed to estimate the probability of different rainfall intensities occurring in any given year. So a 10-year storm has a 10% chance of being equaled or exceeded in any given year, whereas a 100-year storm has a 1% annual chance. And these probabilities are based on frequency data published from NOAA. So, these are the rainfall values typically used in the hydrologic and hydraulic models of our drainage studies. We also require a capacity analysis of the downstream system. So where's the flow going and can the downstream system handle it? We require the capacity analysis to be showing the effects of the more immediate drainage system. So where's the effective runoff and drainage going first? And can the infrastructure that's existing and proposed handle the contributing stormwater? We also look at the impacts of public roads and right-of-ways, as well as affected properties, because they're public ways. Those are pretty important to make sure that any development does not impact those areas. We also look at an analysis of the impacts of the drainage basin. So this is where the master plan can be referenced to link its identified conditions and recommended improvements to the specific site under review. So here we want to answer how the proposed storm sewer design affects the entire watershed and draw of the basin upstream and downstream. And then we also require a justification that all technical approaches, analysis and resulting methodologies and recommendations all have supporting data. So if it is found that on-site stormwater detention is required, we have more requirements that are needed in there, and so it gets pretty technical in there, and these are required by code, and so we require different release rates based on 10-year 2-hour condition storms. And we have other requirements as well that go in there. So we make sure that there's conformity in there as well. So that's our process when we go through the stormwater review initially. So at this point in the review process, if the developing party chooses to move forward and the required improvements are planned to be owned and maintained by the city of Casper, we go into a review for a permit to construct. Where sometimes required on-site improvements typically become privately owned and maintain facilities from the private factor after final approved private owners after the inspection and certifications of occupancy are given. And so then we go through our permit to construct reviews, which are basically in compliance with the drainage studies. They have to have plans submitted that are also approved by a professional engineer. And then we have to conform to the current City of Casper standard specifications for public works and infrastructure improvements. And these are all based off of code as well. We also require geotechnical investigation certified by a Wyoming professional engineer, as well as construction bonding, and then we make sure that those plans are in place before they're approved. And there's other permits that are required with that for the construction itself. It could be Department of Environmental Quality. It could be traffic control permits. There's a lot of different ones that are offered, as well as erosion control as well. So overall, we utilize the Stormwater Master Plan as a high-level planning tool to manage Casper's regional drainage basins. And during these reviews, it's used to evaluate how a proposed project aligns with the broader system so that we can make sure that we're growing incrementally and smart and responsive. So that took a while to go through our process, so I apologize for that. So are there any questions about our process in stormwater reviews?
Do you have any questions? I know there's a lot of information. Yeah.
So how often did you say the one book that looks really old?
This guy.
1983. So, and then the other 2013.
Yes.
So how often do we have to go through? Obviously, the one hasn't been necessarily updated since '83, but
Mayor, Councilor, so quite often, we do. Quite often, these are both utilized. This one is, over 40 years old. However, it's still very relevant to the model that's needed for any type of drainage study. It utilizes a modified rational method, which I'm going to bore you again, but basically it takes the area that's used and it uses different variables of intensity of inches per hour, and it conforms to that. And so it also, like I said before, it conforms to the regional area. And so the hydrologic cycle from rainfall, from participation to runoff, that's what it adheres to. Stormwater master plan, we also utilize a lot as well. This uses the HEC-RES model, which is based off of drainage basins more. So the water is collected, and when I say HEC-RES, the R stands for river. So how the water moves through that drainage basin. So two different models of how they're both set up, but we do utilize both of them. We do look at different sites.
so
Can I hop in here
Yeah.
real quick? Mayor, councilors. Really, and Alex is very good at speaking engineer, as he should be. So these are the engineering principles and practices that we use to evaluate systems. They don't change very frequently. This is the information that I learned when I was in college. Alex. I'm sure it's still the information that they're teaching today. This is more of an evaluation of our current systems and drainages. So this is telling us which drainages have capacity issues already or may get capacity issues if we continue to develop in that drainage. Maybe it's an oversimplification, but that's generally how I see these two documents.
what I was more curious, and that a great explanation, and no, Alex, it might have been the engineering speak, but it was very, very thorough and very good. So how often do we update the 2013 study, or is it continuously being updated?
So as far as the overall plan, it has not been updated for the entire plan. We typically utilize this as kind of a broader base, and then when a specific site gets developed, that specific site utilizes this. So it has not been updated since 2013. And this obviously hasn't been updated either in some time. But this updated, I guess, dated from, I think, 2006. Is that right?
Sounds right. It was in the 90s.
It was in the 90s? Okay. So that was, about 25 years. Since every 25 years, it appears that this has been updated.
Mayor, Councilor, I might add that one of the things that we consider when we want to do these updates is how much we've grown. So if we are growing a lot, that's what's the thing that's going to trigger an update of this plan. The other thing that's going to trigger an update of this plan is if we're able to do some of those capacity projects that are identified in this book. We've got over $50 million in capacity projects that this study identifies to allow for all of the flow from Casper to be developed. We've only had the opportunity to work on about 2 of those. And so at this juncture, we don't need a massive update, but when we see growth and when we see those projects, then that's what will drive the update to that plan.
So one of the things, well, a couple of things. So the Robertson wrote MPO study. I didn't realize, I guess, the boundaries of Casper that come up for that. Part of that, yes, that'd be to the east of Robertson Road is Mills. But the higher end homes just across the river looks to me on the borders of Casper or in Casper. But then this new development up by the Classical Academy or the charter school, Poison Spider and Robertson Road. The new development proposed isn't currently, I'm assuming Mills is looking to annex it. So does the master plan take into consideration all of those pockets and potentials for future development?
It does for a lot of them. I don't know if that specific one was included in that, but it looks at projected growth that's anticipated, that was anticipated at the time, as well as the municipal boundaries of different entities, Casper being one, and then the county being another.
And then if I could,
You
if
bet.
nobody else, so on the catch basins or retention ponds, once, how does it take place when it goes from owned by the city of Casper to the private developer? Or is it, let's say, in a development, all the land masses owned by the developer, and they come to subdivide and plat it and all of that. Do we actually ever have control of that retention pond, or should we?
Mayor, councilors, there are times that when there's a large development that does occur, there's what we call regional detention that the city has had before. We have several permitted ponds that we manage. There are also sites that are smaller that a private party will be required to build and maintain on their property, where it's less likely that the city would even take over that and use that, because that's their property. Now, it's definitely less of something they would want to do, because they're utilizing land space for that. We are seeing underground detention for a lot of smaller sites that still meet those requirements of detention, and they're still able to utilize that space. But generally, from my experience, it's been larger development that's occurred. She can agree, that I've seen.
And to add on to what Alex said, a lot of the times when we see the private stormwater detention, it's associated with a business. So if you think of Walmart on the east side, they have detention behind their building because they're the ones that are contributing to our system, and they need to retain their water to meet our requirements in flow capacity that they determine by doing those engineering studies. So when we're doing regional detention, those are more for residential areas and areas where all of the streets and roads contribute to that. Your Walmart one, our streets and roads don't contribute to something like that private detention area. So one of the things that I look at when we're going through these is it Casper's, do our streets contribute to it? Then it's going to become our stormwater detention area.
Questions for the staff?
And perhaps they could address it. One of my concerns, whether it was Stone Ridge, Eagle Crest, times change, the development changes, covenants get voted out, there is no more homeowners, time changes. But a lot of the residents may not be aware of the beginning of this and may not have had a chance to vote. So what role does the city play to try to protect the citizens? And that really came to mind. You know, I know this in general, and we're not here to talk about Eagle Crest, but that's one of the things, having looked at Stone Ridge, I think it's called Stone Ridge, on the sale of that surplus property that was mandated by us years ago to be a park. And we have no desire to have parks, more parks. Thank God Zelima wasn't here. So, but the city manager last night left out parks in some of the explanation. Zelima was like, and parks. But it's curious to me, and especially hearing folks from Eagle Crest and going up and visiting and trying to understand what they're talking about. You know, what role does the city, and you heard it too. I mean, different people kept coming up from the developer side, saying this is private property. And I'm like, I get it, but what role then do we have to play?
Yeah, Mayor, councilors, I think our role is to make sure that there's a safe development. Is adequate to handle what that proposed use and change is going to be. So I think the we're talking about is an existing easement to conveyance. So we make sure that what's being proposed can be built and can be longevity, that we can allow for conservatively whole drainage system to not be overburdened and negatively affected. That's our main goal. And so make sure that's upheld.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Alex, for presentation. Very entertaining. Lots of good stuff in there. No, I do appreciate it. Lots of really good information. I didn't know how 100-year flows were put together, so it's good to know that. My question, and the reason I was looking forward to this topic on our agenda, is I'm curious, in your and city staff's experience, the stormwater management plan seems to be very much concerned with obviously surface level water runoff, and so my question is, Councilor Sweeney brought up Eagle View, I think Eagle Crest, Eagle Valley, that's what it is.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So that development was brought up. I think also Pleasant Drive, like up behind Griner Ford. Lots of those folks were having issues with basement foundation cracks and stuff. I don't know if water was a play there or if it was more so just a soil thing. But my question is, do you feel like the stormwater management plan, does it capture everything that we need to? Is there any focus on subterranean or subsurface soil composition and water accumulation? Are there pieces that we're missing? I guess is.
I don't think that was the main intent of it, was to get too much into that. There's a little bit of that, Councilor. It talks about soil types, it talks about vegetation, it talks about a lot of different things. But on a particular site, there has to be some sort of subsurface investigation that's done. And so there are ones where this could be really pertinent if they're depending on where something is built. But this does not get into that as much as it talks about the drainage basins themselves as a whole. Because if Casper was not developed, these drainage basins would most likely be going from the south to the north to the river. So it doesn't get into that too much. That's why the site-specific type, when developments happen, there's a geotechnical investigation that's done. And that does, talks about groundwater, talks about other things like that. And those are the best ways to minimize those issues. And so with those recommendations from an engineer, those are brought forth in the building when you talk about groundwater specifically. Now, does surface runoff contribute to groundwater? Absolutely, it does. And so that's where this does come into play, and the likelihood of it doing that, but not as much doesn't cover.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. So
Yeah.
stormwater management plan, not really getting into the nitty gritty of that. It sounds like the geotechnical analyses and other things that go into construction. There are other exercises that should get to the bottom of, underground water and stuff like that. So I guess continuing that line of questioning, are all those responsibilities on the developer? Does the city have, through permitting or other, inspections or anything, does the city vet any of those studies? And in the case of Eagle Valley, has the science just advanced a lot in the past couple decades since that subdivision started being developed? I'm trying to figure out, like, if there was something that was missed and how do we prevent that in the future? Because I do think it's unfortunate so many people in that area have reported having issues. I would hate to buy a house and then find out after the fact, oh, my basement floods all the time. And so I just would hate for another future development for folks to have that same issue.
We, Mayor, councilors, we see an issue during the review process. We definitely note that and comment on that and make recommendations on that. That gets into an area of the private builder, and so their private property, what's going on there. So we don't want to overreach to make it too complicated to say that it's our responsibility to do this, but it is our responsibility to make comments when we do see something in those studies when there is an issue.
So can we, to me, it's kind of overreach, but when you do see something like that, and I can't remember the name of the development up behind Griner where they had all the cracked foundations and a lot of problems. My understanding is, I don't know if that's Cody Shale or what's underneath there, but my understanding is that potentially caissons could have been a big help in some of those homes. And do we have the ability to say, hey, Mr. Developer, you should plan on this additional expense?
Mayor, councilors, only when we have identified a need where it is an absolute thing that has to happen to avoid any of these issues. But many times we just don't know. And so many times they are going off of the recommendations of a certified professional that are saying that these things can be built with all of the known factors of that specific site. And so if we are aware of it, we will definitely say something, but many times it's just unforeseen.
Anything else? Yeah, Michael.
So I don't know if I'm alone in this or not, but I kind of anticipate that we're going to see the developer in that Eagle Valley development again. I'm guessing. So with that, I think that would be, for me anyway, what we did tonight was kind of a good overview of the stormwater management plan in general. But I guess, I think for my benefit, or for the council's benefit and the residents' benefit, it would help to, I think, to kind of understand what some of those, and I know you've had some email correspondence with some of the residents and so forth, but just to kind of understand, okay, when we're talking about an easement, kind of what's currently existing in the plan, taking into consideration the requirements, their development, the easement and so forth. Where will the stormwater go? And could we, with some level of assurance, be comfortable feeling like the stormwaters could be managed and flow away from the homes and not cause damage? So that kind of thing. So I think that's the bottom line. I think that those residents would want, and that I would want some comfort with as council, as I understand that, if that development request does come through again. And just a chance to kind of, ask specific questions about that. And I think that would be a great learning opportunity for, at least for me, it would be, I think for council to kind of understand what it looks like in nitty gritty, in that neighborhood.
We'll go ahead with Pat. We'll make this the last one just because we got to move forward, but go ahead, Pat.
So, first off, Terrell, thank you, Craig, for putting another memo out so that people totally understood, where the developer was coming from. And yes, I think he'll definitely be back. And then Mr. Driggers plans to come and during public comment period, just kind of update us with some of his thoughts on fleshing some things out more with the master plan, I believe. So next Tuesday. So.
Great summary. Thanks, Pat. Thank you, gentlemen and ma'am. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate your work on this.
Didn't even come past.
He was here for support, moral support. All righty, let's go ahead and go to agenda review. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about in the next couple of weeks? Work session, next week's regular meeting? Anything on the agenda? Any questions for the city manager? Anything on the future agenda items? If not, we can move on to council around the table. Okay. All right, council around. Oh, I should have said, do you have anything?
No,
You're good. Okay, awesome. All right, council around the table. Pat, we'll start with you.
So we've had a bunch of different meetings, but I've made copies of an opinion piece that was in yesterday's paper, or Oil City, and that why nonprofits are the lifeline Wyoming can't afford to cut. And from the director of the Youth Crisis Center. So I really ask you to look at it and read it. This is more in regards to the state legislature, but when we're doing our budget session this coming round and the 5th cent comments come up, and previously council has discussed the reduction, to the nonprofits, our reduction from 5th cent. So I just ask you this, I thought this was a great comment period, and it brought to mind that. So
Thanks for sharing that, Pat.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Michael.
I attended the Council for Safety and Justice meeting today. Christie gave a update about the summit that was held back in October, November, kind of some of the valuable information that came from that. So that has now been compiled and is available through their base camp site. So I'm looking forward to looking at that. They did a kind of a re-entry simulation when someone re-enters the community from being incarcerated or whatever. What kind of safety nets or treatment or whatever, what kind of safety nets are available in the community? So that was all kind of mapped out. So I'm very curious to take a look at that. Talk a little bit about she talked about the mobile response unit that is up and running, I hear, that is I believe, staffed now with counseling center staff, and they're looking for opportunities to maybe kind of embed themselves and kind of work more closely together with first responders and fire and police and so forth. But they have, they've also started, it's called the Most Visible Persons initiative, where those folks who, and I think that kind of came up in police chiefs report at the last homeless coalition meeting, with those folks who are, who tend to need quite a bit of intensive support, either starting with police, could be hospital, could be housing, could be food, could be all of those things, and kind of again ensuring that that there is a safety net for those folks. She also gave us an update about the you probably read in the paper about the closing of the unaccompanied student initiative house. It sounds like it's not going to happen for a while, but they're just for economic reasons kind of having to collapse some kind of closing this house in an effort to keep others open as a short-term fix.
On the mills.
Yeah, they said Casper, but I missed.
It's in Mill. Yeah, the house is in Mills.
It's in Mills, I believe, yeah. And again, we're talking about, I think it houses 8 to 14 or 15 students out there. They have quite a success record over the period of time that it's been open. They've had 20 some students while they were living there, graduated from high school, and so they do have a bit of a good positive track record there. I think that was all. I think, let's see, this week, coming up tomorrow, we have Homeless Coalition, and then Thursday I'm attending the nonprofit network workshop up at the Wild Sports Ranch. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Matt, do you have anything tonight?
I don't have anything now.
I guess I'll steal Matt's thunder. We had a finance committee meeting on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? I don't know. Last week. Totally won our audit this year. 0 bad scores.
Wasn't able to make it, but Janine actually briefed me today, so it sounds great.
We noticed you weren't there. It's fine. No,
Sorry,
fine.
my
It's
UW
fine.
job took
Fine.
precedent, pays my bills.
Whatever. Props to all of our accounting and financial people. A+. Because we
They're all
went,
gone.
I know, they're like, we're out of here.
We'll look at Ethan.
I am certain that somebody will report that Brandy gave them full props. I'm sure of it. So other than that, we spent a stellar out. I felt like it was super accomplishing. So you guys are my favorite people to hang out with on the weekend. We should do it every weekend.
Right?
What are you doing later?
We're going to talk about special meetings on Saturdays from now on.
Listen, I have some home projects I'm avoiding, so
Once a month, right?
totally rather hang out with you than do a bathtub. I'm just saying.
Forward with that.
Every 4 weeks, Saturdays, you and me, Pat.
Good times, good times. I mean, if we can end it with chili, right? Just saying.
Oh, chili and
That-
cookies.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Brandy.
Just wanted to say congratulations to one of our fire engineers, Mike Brumman, for winning Firefighter of the Year. Very well deserved, awesome young man. Has been with the fire department for 13 years, I believe. So very, very well deserved. So congrats to him. That's all I got.
Vice Mayor, do you have anything?
I do, Mayor. Thanks. Just one thing. Had a joint downtown meeting at Eggington's last night between Old Yellowstone District Committee, Downtown Casper Business Association, Downtown Development Authority, David Street Station was there. So everyone who has any stake in downtown at all is there. Really good attendance. Started off with a presentation from Captain Dabney on downtown parking enforcement. He explained that, they're trying to cover, but their resources are also demanded elsewhere. He mentioned some, really interesting statistics, such as the fact that so far this was last year. We had 35 people. Just those 35 people resulted in about $380,000 in service costs. These are the super utilizers or the high needs folks. It's a lot of touch points. Mentioned the fact that we have about a $2 million incarceration budget right now. As of this year, they've already got 45 public intoxes. We have 5 community service, again, doing their best to cover the whole area, but 5 service officers for 60,000 people, obviously spread a little bit thin. We got feedback from merchants on things like holiday promotions, Christmas lighting, because that was a little bit different this year. Counselor Jensen's not here, but got some feedback for her and her group at the chamber in regards to how the parade went. And, so I'm just glad everyone's in the same room, hashing stuff out, all collaborating and cooperating. That is stark contrast to how those folks were communicating or not when I first started getting involved early on in my tenure. And then got to meet Steve Gaynor from, my understanding is he took over at Fort Casper, and super interesting dude. I'm hopeful that he's in front of us at some point in the future. Sounds like he's got exciting ideas for the museum, and again, very interesting man with an interesting resume. So looking forward to seeing, what kind of ideas he's got for Fort Casper. But that is all I got. Thank you, sir.
Gene, is that something maybe we could have when he's ready, have him come in, introduce himself and so forth? If that's okay with council.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Be happy to.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't really have anything other than kind of just going to tag off what Brandy said about the strategic planning meeting we had on Saturday. And it was, I felt like very useful, very be able to utilize that time. One, to kind of get on the same page with our new city manager within the first month. And so I think that was beneficial to all of us. I think we did a lot of hard work. And so appreciate everybody giving up their Saturday to be there. Yeah.
If I could add to that, of course, I hate strategic planning. I just don't really find a great deal of value.
Sure.
But his methodology, I felt with the game, I thought was valuable and kind of kept me in the game, I guess. So,
I agree, Pat.
and I'd also like to thank staff, two different events, that in particular, and for organizing all of that. But also the DEQ meeting was on up at Casper College that in relationship to the Semino project. And I went out of curiosity. It was put on by DEQ, but thankfully the city manager and was present, and I spoke very briefly about regional water and its concerns, but with the well field and all of that, but DEQ seemed to be very receptive, and whether it'll go any, I don't know, but and then the second was last night, and Kyle was there also up at Casper College again in the learning series about lodging tax, 5th cent and 6th cent. And Annette from Visit Casper presented on the lodging tax side. And then Janine and Selena presented fifth and sixth. And I thought it was very good, very informational. Just wish more people would engage, but
Thank you, Pat.
appreciate our professional staff.
Absolutely. Janine.
If I could piggyback on that, I just want to acknowledge Fleur Trummel, our chief of staff, who did pretty much all the work organizing your Saturday meeting. So thank you, Fleur. We really appreciate you.
She rescued me from the horse ranch.
That's right.
That's right.
Maggie got lost.
Thank you, guys.
That's all right. Okay, thank you, everyone. We do have an executive session to get ready for, so a special meeting to call. Oh, no, okay. No, you're good. Okay, I now call the January 27th, 2026 special council meeting to order. Chair would entertain a motion to by minute action excuse the absence of Councilor Pollock and Councilor Jensen.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vaughn, seconded by McIntosh. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have matters to discuss regarding personnel matters. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session, and at the conclusion of the executive session, to reconvene this special meeting solely for the purposes of adjourning this special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bond, seconded by McIntosh. There are a majority of members present, and a motion to adjourn into an executive session has been moved and seconded. This motion requires a 2/3 majority of the council present. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye. Motion passes. A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned to an executive session.